Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Influential Oregonian, where we have discussions on Oregon history and academics and interview important people who have made history within or in the name of the Beaver State. I'm your host, Marcus Axford, from the show Welcome to Oregon, joined by my boon companions, archaeologists David Winkler and Finn J.D. John of Offbeat Oregon. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you, Marcus.
Great to be here. Thanks, Marcus.
And our guest today is a historian and videographer who creates YouTube documentaries of obscure history from the Pacific Northwest and beyond, including the downfall of Oregon's nuclear power plant and Oregon's failed attempt at a 200-mile riverfront park. May I present Peter Dibble.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yes, very excited. All right, before we get to our formal interview, news update. So, I know nobody mentioned it, but we did have some audio issues with with the last interview. So we've got it all taken care of, and now the video is re-upped on YouTube. I say this because some people might be like, so why did that video go away and then come back again, refresh? And that's why. So we got that fixed. And then I haven't picked a subject for this next week's episode of Welcome to Oregon. I think I'm going to take a break from all the, because I did Black History last, and then I did protests before that. So I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break and do the subject on, I don't know, bridges or something. Because I thought of maybe doing Chinese history, and I'm like, I know we're kind of in revolutionary times right now, but I think we need a little bit of a break.
Something low stakes.
Yeah. And honestly, bridges sound so mundane, but I started looking around and, of course, always keeping up with Finn's show and hearing, every once in a while I hear a story about a bridge. I'm like, I think that might be not just a good episode, but kind of a lot of fun, too.
Yeah.
Because, I remember I think it was elementary school, we needed to do like a major project on something, and I picked and don't ask me how I still remember the name of it, the Akashi Kaikyo Bridge.
Cool.
It must have been where I saw it like on a documentary or something, and I've always kind of been like this, my brain fixates on it and goes, oh, that's fascinating, and picked it and did a bunch of research on it. I can't tell you like what the significance of it was. I remember that it was a engineering marvel of some kind, but with that in mind, that might be part of my global intro. So I'm pretty excited for that.
Where is it?
Sounds like Japan.
I was gonna say it's probably Japan.
Is it like the big bridge that connects like the Tokyo airport to the mainland?
Akashi. Okay, I don't even know.
All right. We can figure it out later.
Yeah.
Somebody leave us a comment and tell us where this bridge is.
It's a suspension bridge in Japan. It links the city of Kobe on the Japanese island of Honshu and Owaya. Oh God, my dialects are so bad. But anyway,
Now, see, nobody's going to leave us a comment because you spoiled it for them.
Well, fine. Leave.
Well, they can at least comment on how we pronounced all that wrong.
Yes.
and do all that linguistics text that I don't understand.
I was gonna say, do your duty and leave negative comments about the pronunciation of words.
We're doing our best, okay?
Yeah.
I don't have the mouth structure for these pronunciations.
It's pronounced Estacada and Yakina. What are some other ones? Oh, sorry, I'm getting off track.
Yeah.
No, you're good. So I think that wraps up my portion of our 10 minutes of shooting
Banter.
stuff. Yeah, banter.
Is that what that was?
See, this is what happens when we decide to do this at 9 a.m. Nobody's firing on all cylinders. But I feel like that makes for a little bit more entertainment.
Yeah, I rolled out of bed like 15 minutes ago, like the French aristocrat that I am.
I might put the bite on you guys later on in the show for a list to help me put together a list of easily mispronounced Oregon place names, because that would be, I think, a fun column to write.
Do you know how many people I've heard call it Monmouth?
Yeah.
Monmouth? Yeah, that's a good one. I was thinking Estacada is probably at the top, but
I pronounced it as Gervais, and I was promptly corrected that it is in fact
like the
Jervis.
French aristocrat that you are.
Like the French aristocrat that I am. I was promptly corrected by a local Jervis resident.
the Marquis of Winkler.
Yes.
That's going to be your new title, archaeologist and Marquis.
Marquis. Marquis. Marquis.
I don't even like getting dirty, and I chose a profession where I get absolutely filthy.
But it's good. It's clean dirt. I mean,
there's no such thing. It's science dirt, and that's the difference.
Okay.
I like that science dirt. Okay. Marquis of Salem.
Yes.
Speaking of archaeology, is there anything interesting that we should know about this week? Or with you?
Yeah. So end of the month, we've got our big. It's no longer the parsonage excavation. That's just where we started. It's the latest excavation in the sort of Methodist settler series that my mentor Kimberly Fitzgerald has been doing over the last several years. We're still kind of chasing the footprint of the title of the building is the Indian Manual Labor Training School. It was a Methodist boarding school, and we are trying to find the footprint of it. We believe it is somewhere on Willamette University's campus, because that school, when it was shuttered as an Indigenous boarding school, became a sort of all-purpose school for the children of the colonists that were in the area, which then became Willamette University. And so this has been a part of a project to support the slogan that Kimberly came up with of "Tell the Full Story." This has been a story that's been, literally and figuratively buried for, 200 years now. And we're trying to bring it to light in a way that is, sort of accurate and constructive.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think it's Jason Lee that I remember this about. But because I went back through one of the scripts that I did, and I believe it's Jason Lee that doesn't have any living descendants, direct descendants, because
he had a daughter,
but his daughter
that
did
survived.
I don't think she had kids.
I don't think she did either.
I think that's what I remember. My research is like realizing, oh wow, it could be another Oregon historical figure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Jason Lee, because I know he had a daughter, but that daughter I don't think had any children.
I don't believe so. No, his first wife and he are buried in the Mission Cemetery in downtown Salem, and I believe his wife and first child share a grave.
Okay.
But I believe the daughter that survived was with his second or third wife. People tended to die on the frontier quite a bit.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was
popular pastime.
Yeah, just for funsies. You know what sounds really great? Croaking.
I don't want to walk anymore. I'm just going to lie down over here in this pile of rocks.
Oh, look at those birds circling overhead. They're so colorful.
Red-headed eagles.
Yeah. Oh, they're bald? I didn't think bald eagles looked like that.
I'm going to go pet it. Oh, it's angry. Well, excellent. Is that all for this week?
I did. Oh, I. So the new company that I started with, SWCA, has been amazing. I got to go up to their Portland office and do some lab work. And one of the project leads, to clarify for the audience, archaeologist is a legal distinction. That is a legal title that someone holds when they have a certification and a permit. My job is field technician, so I'm working on a certification project, but I'm not an archaeologist. So one of the certified archaeologists at the office, we're just kind of shooting the shit, and I mentioned that I collected vintage and antique archaeology books, and she gave me this. It's
Wow.
The Archaeology of Crete by J.D.S. Pendlebury. Um, I know precious little about Greek and Mycenaean archaeology. This book was published in 19, I believe, 65. J.D.S. Pendlebury was a part of the wave of colonial British archaeologists from kind of the not the 1800s, but he was working in the 1930s. He actually wrote this book in the 1930s, right before World War II. He was a part of the British consulate office and was actually tasked by the British government to train um, Cretan guerrillas to fight the Nazis in World War II. And
Dang.
JDS Pendlebury was actually killed by a German paratrooper during the war. And this book was published, decades after his death. It's probably once the European infrastructure and economy started to rebuild. But it's been a fascinating read so far.
That's excellent.
Cool.
Alrighty, Finn.
Yeah, I don't have much to report on. I've been working on I've been working on the torso murders for my next column. They're like this hacked up human torso that was found in the Willamette River in bags from about 1946 to 1948, I want to say. And in researching it, I have found a really awesome book by somebody that I knew slightly before he shuffled off this mortal coil. That would be J.D. Chandler, a Portland pop historian with a penchant for kind of like gritty film noir type stories. He's written several books. This one he wrote with I'm blanking her name, Teresa Kennedy. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on Teresa's last name. But anyway, it's J.D. Chandler and Teresa Kennedy. She married one of the detectives from the Portland Police Department, who's pretty famous, and that's probably why my brain is playing games with me right now. But anyway, it's something like I was looking around for it, but it's about dirty doings in Prohibition era Portland with the vaudeville mayor, George Baker, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I recommend it, but I can't tell you what its title is, so maybe I'll just shut up.
Okay. See, when you said the torso murders, I imagined somebody with like using a torso as a bludgeoning weapon.
No, that was the first thing that was found was the torso of about a 40-year-old woman.
Jeez.
And they Teresa and JD make the case that it was probably a woman named Anna Schrader, who was a private detective who had a very public blow up with a police detective in the 1930s, I think, or 20s. Anyway, but nobody really knows who it was.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, you'll have to report back to us
Yeah.
with your findings.
See, I was thinking of the thing from 13 Ghosts.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Alrighty. Now it's going to be Peter's turn. We're going to get into our formal interview now that we've done our banter and our updates and all that good stuff. So, Peter, are you ready?
I am ready.
Yay, are you excited?
I am. Yeah.
Oh, well, that'd be a first. Nobody's
Yeah.
excited on the
Don't
show.
ask questions you don't want to know the answer to.
Well, and our first question that I seemingly have developed a liking for is, are you a native Oregonian? And if not, where did your journey begin and how did it lead you here?
I am not a native Oregonian. Um, I I started in California. I know I'm not supposed to say that here. I have been living here for over a decade now, though, and I yeah started. I went to school for film and animation. Was originally going to go in that direction. Ended up doing graphic design as a career instead, and so that kind of lets me more or less live anywhere in the country that I want to. As a family, we'd always come up here to Oregon as I was growing up, and the time was right at some point for me to move up here myself. So I've been up here for over 10 years now and been loving it ever since.
Actually, that opens up a good line of questioning, and that is, where do we start? What would be, I guess, your favorite place in the state to visit?
Oh gosh, the coast, I would say, as just as a region, I guess. I'd have to think more about it, specific spots, but yeah, I think the coast is probably my favorite.
No, that's completely understandable. Having grown up in the Willamette Valley, specifically, Polk County, we are kind of all situated ideally in this perfect spot where the coast largely is only like an hour away. There's obviously certain parts where it's farther than that, but the popular places like Newport, Lincoln City are just, a little over an hour away. And I always tell people my favorite city in the entire state has got to be Bend. I absolutely love Central Oregon. There's just some unusual charm about the high desert. What's a place that you haven't been to in the state, but you really want to go?
I really haven't seen much of the eastern half of the state, and I've been told that there's some beautiful places out there, and for whatever reason, just haven't made the time to get out there yet. But I really like to do it at some point.
It is kind of on the way to nowhere. You have to be going to Eastern Oregon to go to Eastern Oregon.
Way
Yeah.
to Idaho, Finn. That's not nowhere.
Like I said, just got to throw shade at the neighboring states. That's what I do.
I've been there. He's right. It's not that there's not nothing. It's just when you look at Idaho as a civilization, I guess you would put it.
No, Idaho is awesome. I love Idaho. I was just throwing shade because it's my
Because
duty.
it's funny. Yeah.
Well, like
And it
landscape
makes them mad.
landscape wise, it's great, but yeah, if you look at it like, city wise, there's not much there. There's like what Boise, obviously, is it Post or Idaho Falls? Anyway,
There's
but yeah,
Coeur d'Alene. There's some good stuff out there.
yeah. My dad was born in the Panhandle, so yeah. But yeah, Eastern Oregon. Are you interested in like mining history?
Yeah, I don't really know much about that, but sounds cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's like Sumter. There's of course the story of the Blue Bucket Mine, which I find it interesting that it's called a mine because the actual story of it is more or less pioneers on the trail stumbled upon gold nuggets somewhere and just could never find them again, which is understandable because of you figure the conditions of the trail always being, especially that specific wagon train. I think that was the Meek wagon train. Just the exhaustion, the desperation. You're not really thinking about about where you found this shiny rock that they didn't even know was gold at the time.
All those gold stories, though, they've been augmented so much over the years. It's really hard to know what's real. it's,
Yeah, absolutely.
Peter, how did you get started with this? I've been dying to ask. What was your first video that you did?
Yeah, so when I started doing the videos on YouTube, I didn't go into it with the intention of building a YouTube channel as we know it today. more or less, it was for many years, I would just have a natural interest in many different obscure things and reading up on them myself. And for many things, there are videos that do exist on it, but not everything, especially as you get more obscure. The first video that I worked on was about a system called CarTrack, which was basically the first
the railroad thing.
Widespread implementation of barcode technology in the 60s. And it was originally used for tracking railroad cars across the country.
You said CarTrack, and I remembered seeing a video that you did about, I think you did this video, about the railroad thing where you would drive your car onto a railroad car and it would drive you to Florida where you would...
Oh, the auto train. Yeah.
Yeah,
that is one I did as well.
Yeah.
Similar names, I guess. Yeah, I never thought about that before. Anyway, so the barcode thing, it was such an obscure, small topic, but no one had done a video on it before. And I would like there to be a video on it, even if other people are interested in it at some point. I'll make something. I'll throw something together just in case other people find it interesting. And then once I was finished with that, I was like, in the past I'd read about the history of a lot of the canceled freeways in Portland. And I found that interesting. But again, there was no video on it. So I'm like, okay, I'll make a video on that too. And then, ongoing from there, it kind of just built momentum until I realized people are actually watching these things. And then now there's just a whole ass channel. So
Nice.
Yeah, your following. I'm not as familiar with your work as Finn is. I'll be the first to admit that. It's obviously kind of hard to keep track of everything. But when I saw over 73,000 subscribers, my head started to spin. I'm like, wow, that is an amazing following. How long have you been doing this?
I think 5 years.
5 years.
4.5 years.
I'm looking at your page on YouTube, and the oldest one, I found the CarTrack video. I'm going to have to watch it now. But it says 4 years ago. And I remember now, I had seen the Kowalka landing video before, and before I put it together with your brand. But now I'm seeing it because I remember visiting that park. And then I remember also trying to find it and being unable to do so. So I was very interested when I saw that someone had done a video on it. I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter,
It was a nice little park.
Peter, I've got a quick question for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
So you mentioned your day job is graphic designer. Is there a way, or do you find that there are ways in which your profession kind of gets blended into your work with history?
Not really. No, they're pretty separate.
Gotcha.
I would say really my skill set in being able to make graphics is kind of I would say the only real overlap between those two things.
Gotcha.
But certainly, on the one half, I can pay the bills, and on the other half, I can have fun and do the video projects.
Sure.
So.
Well, thank you.
How long does it take to do one of these? Like a half an hour show?
Oh my gosh. I've gotten slower over time. But it usually at least a few months.
Oh, wow. And I'm freaking out about getting ready every week or every other. Well, really, with Welcome to Oregon, every 2 weeks, you would think that's enough time to write. But when, you have a full-time job, 8 to 4, and you've got kids and family, and, spoiler alert, we're actually kind of looking where we're at and buying a house. There's just a lot of stuff going on that I'm like, where do we all find the time to get our work in,
Yeah, when you said 2 weeks to get ready, Marcus, I imagined like brushing your teeth and putting on a shirt and shaving.
No, it's mostly to write 8 to 10 pages, and most of that is just starting the big. It's always with any project, it's the beginning. It's always figuring out not even just what you're going to talk about, but how you're going to start it.
Yeah, get your angle right. Then it writes itself.
Yeah, and I think that's a good question for Peter here. Like, we've asked this question before. Where do you get your inspiration? And shoot, what was the other half of that question? There's my brain going again. I had my thought, and then we'll start with that. Where do you kind of get your inspiration for an idea from?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for as many different videos as I've done, I feel like the inspiration has come from that many different places. It's fairly inconsistent. Usually it'll be like, oh, I was reading about something, learned about a certain topic, realized that no one's really covered that in depth in a video yet. So that especially if it overlaps with my own personal interests, then I'll kind of latch onto that. Many times now, having done this for a while, an inspiration for an idea will come from having researched the previous video. And then while I'm doing that, I end up learning about something else. I put in that and then end up doing another video on the other thing later.
I completely relate to that because I've done that many times in researching where like I swear I'm a broken record when I do my episodes where I say, "Oh, I would love to talk more about this person, but we've only got 30 minutes. We can't go into their whole autobiography." So I always say, "Well, eventually we'll get to a full story of this person." And you figure doing this for 2 years, there's still just a long backlog. Do you find yourself having a backlog, or are you staying pretty up to date on what you want to do?
I feel like I have had a backlog in the past. You're talking about in terms of just everything I want to cover.
Yeah,
that
like
kind of stuff.
like God knows there's a lot of stuff that we think about on a daily basis that you kind of think, man, that would make for some really cool content. Do you ever feel like you kind of fall behind on those ideas?
Not so much now. I'm actually starting to have kind of the opposite problem. What part of the reason for that is over time, as I've kind of refined my craft, I've gotten a lot more picky about which topics I cover and what would make a good video. And between that and there's just a lot more on YouTube now than there was 5 years ago. I'm finding it harder to find topics where it would really benefit from me putting my voice out there to tell that story. So it's getting harder to find things that I want to cover now. In the past, yeah, absolutely. I would have this huge backlog of ideas, some of which became videos, many of which did not. But I don't know. I think as my style has changed a little bit over time, it kind of helped me filter out some of those ideas.
Well, and that makes sense because, you're talking about it can take up to 3 months. So, essentially you're only releasing, four maybe 5 videos a year, versus what we do. I mean, Finn's doing it every day for 5 days a week,
Well, no, but those are archive shows, though. I just pull those up and queue them up. I mean, there's no comparison to the amount of work.
Actually, no, you've got a good point. That's true. Okay, well, fine. I'm doing Welcome to Oregon every other week, and I won't talk about this show because we're just sitting down and preparing some questions, having a discussion. But comparing the two, I'm having to do all this work every other week, but you have to take all that time over the course of 3 months to prepare this video. I'm trying to think. What's your favorite video that you've done so far?
Oh gosh, probably the one on the Pixieland amusement park.
Is that the most
Oregon.
Popular one too?
The Coalca Landing abandoned park is the most viewed
really?
one.
Okay.
Pixieland isn't that far behind, but
I bet the Evergreen Air Museum one is pretty big too. The Spruce Goose one.
Yeah, that's actually the third.
I'm pulling it up
Number
here.
three, I guess.
1.3 million views.
Oh, what?
Damn, Peter.
What? I'm gonna give you a applause for that one. Goodness gracious.
Wow. Kowalka Landing is fixing to break 2 million. Woo!
Get
Yeah,
good,
well, I
Marcus.
mean, yeah. The quality is there. What do you actually shoot these, Peter, or is this collections from archive films? Like, I should know the answer to this question because I watched your videos, but
Yeah.
I sort of went for the ride. I didn't have my technician's pencil behind my ear.
Yeah. It totally depends on the topic. The vast majority of what I show is either archival footage and supplemented with my own graphics, or pulling, historical photos, that kind of thing. Where it is relevant to, I will go shoot some footage myself. I don't do a whole lot of it though.
What do you shoot it with? Do you have like a mirrorless SLR type setup, or?
Honestly, usually what I'm capturing is so quick that I just do it with my phone. If I were doing more serious videography on a regular basis, I would certainly be using something more substantial, but
It's amazing how good the quality is from just your basic iPhone these days.
yeah.
Yeah, cool. What's the most time-consuming part of your production process?
Honestly, the research takes,
That makes
for any
sense.
given project, I would say that takes about 2/3 of the time. Is just getting into the weeds and kind of collecting all the notes and then somehow working through all of that to turn that into a cohesive script.
And what do you use for your research sources? I know some people swear by books, other people, swear by archives. Do you do kind of like a hybrid with your research?
Yeah, definitely. The specific sources definitely also depends on the topic. Because some things have had books written on them, some haven't. Where I can, and usually with the topics I'm covering are obscure enough that often there isn't a book I can pull from. When I can, I certainly do pull from books. I would say one of my primary sources is like newspaper archives, because usually those cover the vast majority of the details pretty accurately, I would find most of the time. And and similarly, like if I can find an academic paper on a certain topic, I pull from that as well. So yeah, it definitely depends on the video.
For sure.
So, Peter, are you working on anything right now that you don't mind tipping your hand on a little bit? Give us a coming attractions.
I am working on a video right now. I kind of have a policy of not revealing that kind of stuff until it's
Totally
basically
understandable.
done.
Fair.
Right on.
At what point do you kind of feel like a video is done? Because again, kindred spirits here. For me, I swear a story is never perfect, which I guess is just kind of the nature of the beast. But yeah, for you in particular, at what point do you ever feel like your project is done, and do you feel regret or like you've left anything out?
Yeah, it's hard to say because I kind of tend to be a perfectionist. Partially, I think, because you have to, because, especially with how the channel is now, if I put something out there, there might be 100,000 people looking at this thing. So I want to make sure it's accurate, not only for the sake of historical communication, but also if I get something wrong, people will be very quick to to let me know. But in terms of, I trust that my process is pretty solid and that I'm doing the work to cross-reference all the facts and everything, make sure that it's good. At some point, you do just kind of have to put a bow on it and say it's done, and just accept that any errors at this point are probably going to be pretty small. Because, if you're too much of a perfectionist, obviously the video will never come out at all. So it's definitely, you have to balance it, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely been a couple of projects that I look back on now, over 2 years ago. I really wish I had done that better, but I imagine. Do you get pretty positive feedback overall on your videos?
Overall, yeah, it's very positive, and I feel very grateful for that. Certain topics definitely pull a lot of engagement from people who don't have positive things to say. I think actually we mentioned the Kawauka Landing abandoned state park video, that's the one that's almost 2 million views. I think that's a good example of this because, well, for two reasons. One being I didn't intend for that to be a big video. That was just a small, this is kind of an interesting thing. I'll do it on the side. But I think it was right before Christmas or something.
I think it's a thumbnail. I think it's that thumbnail. It says abandoned state park. I mean, if you had put Kawauka Landing on that, no one would have looked at it. But that's such a mystery box. And it's such a great video, too. So once they've gotten there, they don't feel, well, I didn't feel like I had been tricked or anything like that. I was like, oh, yeah, I know that place. I'm sorry, I cut you right off. I got excited.
You're good. I appreciate it. A lot of that one, I think partially part of the reason it has so many views is because a lot of people went into it thinking it was going to be revealing some kind of murder that happened there or Bigfoot or whatever. Literally, people are like yelling at me for clickbaiting them.
And they clickbait themselves,
when they kind of clickbait themselves going into it with a certain expectation.
Well,
and then when it's not that, then they get mad at me for it.
I think it's a great thumbnail, but clickbait is like the last. Okay, I don't know. I guess it just takes all kinds.
It does, yeah.
That is one thing about YouTube is like all of the instant feedback, including a bunch of trolls who are just trying to ruin your day for fun, I guess. Was that hard to get used to?
It was, I think, and that was, I think, the first video I had released that really did get a lot of quote unquote controversy, mostly for that reason.
Wow.
And over time, I think you kind of just toughen up to it a little bit. Now people say stuff, it doesn't bother me at all. But it's a learning curve for sure.
Yeah, that can be hard to get used to because, like, God knows I argue too much on Facebook, but it's not that, like, I want to be right. I just want what we're arguing about to be accurate. And that's easy to do when you're doing it with a person one-on-one because when they understand where you're coming from, cool, we're on the same page. But then you have to do that with dozens, hundreds, thousands of people, and it's impossible. So at some point, you got to go, nope. I'm out.
Well, and you have to assume that 75% of those are bots and AI accounts anyways.
Or just straight up trolls impersonating bots and AI and just looking for something fun to do with. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really down on social media lately. I remember when it was fun.
The good old days of MySpace when everybody was, somewhat nice to each other on the internet. How do I word this? Because I feel like it's a really great question. Positive feedback. What is the thing that sticks out to you the most? Like, I've talked about before how doing the lecture for Finn's class at OSU has got to be one of my most standout moments in my career, and it was such a rewarding feeling. What is a comment or a moment of praise or something that stuck out in your mind that helped you keep moving forward?
I really, one of the challenges I mentally sort of have to keep reminding myself to overcome as I work through this channel is, working on local history. You go into it thinking, only a handful of people are going to care about this or find it interesting. But some of the comments that I really appreciate are from people saying, hey, I live in Finland. I'm watching this at 3 a.m. Never heard of this place, but I think this is really well done. And it's a really fascinating story. To me, that means that, okay, I've presented this in a way that literally, and someone from anywhere could find this interesting, even if they don't necessarily live in Oregon. Hi, doggy.
We had to have our photo bombing. This is Rusty, by the way.
Hi, Rusty.
He's cute.
He's very pesty. When he wants somebody to pet him, he gets up and he goes like this on your arm. So that's super. And that's the good side of the whole instant feedback comments thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting when we think, wow, somebody from like the other side of the planet is interested in our place. But when we think about like, well, there's plenty of people that are interested in, say, German history or the French history, like European history. Oh, there's my dogs if you can hear them. It's canine hour. But yeah, you think of how much history like Europe has and how much of interest people have in it. I think maybe it's because we're stuck on the idea that in the United States, they are states and not countries. So maybe in our brains that there's that kind of division there. Because, yeah, like we have a guy in our Discord who's from Nepal, which I'm like, why do you care about what happens here? But
shout out, Kurt.
Yeah, like we've all talked about in our work, and I believe I talked about when we interviewed Daryl Jabin, like the Titanic is a monumental thing in history that had a lot of ties to Oregon. And we never think about that. We just think of what happens here and not having it not connected to anything else. But I think that's also why I like doing the global intro for my show is I'm taking what happens in the world and kind of connecting it with the main topic we have here at home. Has there ever been, and it might be the same answer as previous, has there ever been a comment like so vitriolic that you kind of think, I don't want to do this anymore?
Oh gosh. I mean, certainly not anymore. I think to me the I mean, because if people are just complaining about the way they feel about something, that's kind of their problem. That's not my problem. But to me, I think a comment that, and I haven't gotten this, but if I got a comment that was basically saying like, hey, you actually got a lot of these facts wrong, or, you presented this history, but actually, you were misinformed about such and such. Or another way to say that is my greatest fear is that I get some of the history wrong.
No, that's absolutely right.
And I think that's partially why the research takes so long, is that I really want to cross-reference everything and make sure I get as much right as I can. So in theory, that would be the worst kind of comment I could get.
Well, for what it's worth, I mean, all of us work so hard. Even the most academic of academics work so hard. But we're all going to get it wrong once in a while because, history is blind and it's fluid. And, we're always discovering all the time that, what we thought was this way for so long is actually another way. Like, we could think poorly of a historic figure. Oh, they were a terrible person. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, a hidden journal of theirs is found where they were like this for a specific reason to say, I don't know, protect a certain institution of people or whoever it was. And then it's like, oh, wow, the perspective has changed. We're looking at this person from a completely different point of view, or this event from a completely different point of view. But, vice versa, it's also kind of cool to know that you just as much, a person that has been so successful in just 4 years, has these very grounded, worries and thoughts and such. I think that's a really great thing to know for people who want to get out there and do the same kind of work that we all do. That, okay, cool. I should strive to be perfect, but I shouldn't let it hinder me. I shouldn't, have it be the end all be all kind of thing.
Well, and one cool thing about this digital environment is that if there is something that is like, if you go into a story with your complete angle wrong, like I went into the story of Penn Phillips' Christmas Valley land hustle with a completely, a certain angle that was resented rather bitterly by several people from Christmas Valley who called me up and set me straight, and I was able to fix what ailed it in get it out there in amended form, which is a nice luxury. Is that something that you're able to do, Peter, in your format? I'm not very familiar with video production.
Yeah, I mean, it's more or less once it's out there. I mean, I can't, if a video is live on YouTube, I can't go and make edits to it.
So the stakes are pretty high for you, and they're not for me, for sure.
I guess so.
I mean, they're high-ish, but
yeah. I mean, worst case, I would just take a video down, correct it, and re-upload it, or whatever. So, it's not the end of the world, but, I think in general, I try to put my best foot forward to start with rather than having to go and correct something later. And this is not to say that I never make mistakes. I've certainly made many small, non-consequential errors throughout many of my videos, but, nothing that warrants having to take down the whole thing.
Yeah, it's funny because we literally were just talking about at the top of the show how we had the exact same problem. And, I didn't mark
that was with the audio, though, right?
It was. Well, and you still have to take the video down and re-upload it in order to get the correct. So though we only had 9 views on it so far because I didn't market it yet for that specific reason. But I mean, those 9 views will probably show up again. But I mean, they're still gone. Once you take down a video, all of your views, all of your comments, everything is gone. And there's really not much you can do about it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Shoot, I had such a good question. Now it's evaded me and it's along that. Oh, yes. What do you feel is like the worst mistake you've made on a project?
Well, let's not dwell on the mistakes. I mean, that's like
I'm just curious.
We've just spent 10 minutes talking about what can go wrong. I mean,
ultimately we are playing a game of telephone with the past. So of course there are going to be mistakes.
Well, it's a curiosity.
Just do the best you can. Yeah.
And I'm also looking forward to. Well, you know what? Okay, let's do the flip side first. What is I'm trying to, again, figure out how to word this because I've had this too where I've had this question, what's the most interesting thing you have found in a research for a topic that you didn't think you were going to before?
Ooh, I think I can probably answer both of those questions in one. I'll do my best here. So going back again to that Kawako landing video, I had done basically for those who don't know, the premise of it was that there's this Oregon State Park that was closed, and I really hadn't seen a lot of information about why it was closed because that's not very typical for a state park to just shut down. And so the premise of the video is kind of my own personal online research of what this place was and what the potential reasons may have been for its closure. So I released the video, and shortly after that, I was given actually a lot more information from the Oregon State Parks people. They actually were like, hey, we saw your video, we enjoyed it, here's even more information. Partially because anyway. So essentially, I was given a lot more detail and granular information about what actually happened. The conclusions I make in the video aren't wrong, but they don't tell the whole story necessarily. But it's not so much that I feel like I need to take it down and re-upload it and give that extra information necessarily. I did actually give a talk. This was a while back now, in Lake Oswego at the Lake Theater. The Lake Oswego Public Library invited me to give a talk about local history, and I chose this topic because this would be an opportunity for me to say, here's what I found originally, then here's other information that kind of helps tell the whole story. So in terms of a mistake, I would say there were other avenues of finding this information that I wasn't aware of when I originally made the video that I know now. And I think that did teach me a little bit more of a lesson of like, okay, there are other avenues you can go to find more information. Not to say that the information was wrong, but it just wasn't necessarily complete. I know that was a long-winded answer.
Right. Have you? It makes me think of a question though that I was hoping I could pitch at you, which is, have you ever had a story that you tucked into and it just exploded on you? It was just so much bigger than you thought it was going to be.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm trying to think about that because usually when I go into it, I have some idea. I guess Pixieland actually would be a good example of that.
Yeah.
Because I went into it thinking like I only knew, a couple of, small details about this amusement park that at one time existed on the Oregon coast. Never went into it thinking it was going to be a very big topic, partially because it only lasted a handful of years, I believe, like 7 years, something like that. But the more I dug into it and found more sources from information sources for photos and all that, historical societies and whatnot, I realized, actually, this can fill an entire hour, basically. So that's definitely one that got a lot bigger than I was expecting.
Yeah, you got a lot of stuff on Pixieland. I think I may have actually updated my website based on some of that information.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Pixieland is such a great story.
Yeah, I did it myself too when I did an episode on amusement parks. And I think the interesting thing, I don't remember too much because, when you have to do a show every 2 weeks and you're doing all these details for one topic, eventually everything just kind of muddles together. What stood out to me with that was just where the location was, because it wasn't where I thought it was. I didn't realize it was at the junction, not next to Otis, but close to it. But I didn't realize it was at the junction of 101 and Highway 22. So that was really interesting for me to learn.
Yeah, I had always thought that it was near the Otis Cafe, but I eventually found the location and walked around, and there's like nothing left.
Well, I've got one last question for you. We're starting to run out of time here. What would you say has been your greatest triumph?
Oh my gosh. I will say the triumph that has surprised me the most has probably just been the size of the following of the channel as a whole. Certainly, obviously, like I said earlier, I didn't go into it intending to make a documentary YouTube channel. Certainly, especially with the obscurity of the topics and really kind of some of them being very hyper local stories, I never would have guessed that it has gotten to the point that it is now. So I'm proud of that, and certainly it was something I never expected, but I do appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite an achievement for sure. I can't say I'm not slightly envious, but you want people to succeed. You want your friends and colleagues to succeed because it's not just about the person's one success. It's the fact that this information you've worked so hard on, done such an amazing job, is out there for everybody to enjoy and to gain some insight and to learn from. So I really do appreciate that this exists and it's out there and it's free.
Yeah, it's super awesome, and we also are able to plunder it relentlessly for story ideas for our own forums.
I was gonna say, now I'm like, oh,
that's how the knowledge community grows, right? We all draw inspiration from each other, and it just becomes just becomes sort of like a distributed community.
Oh, actually, I've got a great question. Speaking of inspiration, do you draw inspiration from any specific content creators? Because I know for my work, I started with the inspiration from Aaron Mahnke's lore and his other works as well, and of course Finn's show always supplies me with ideas that I can expand on. But do you have any inspirations that you draw from?
I don't draw from other creators like for ideas. Because like I said earlier, I really try to pull stuff that other people haven't already covered. Although I'm finding that that's becoming less feasible as time goes on. Originally, when I first started the channel, I think just in terms of style of presenting history in a compelling way, or at least attempting to. The channel Defunct Land was a big inspiration for me. If for those who aren't familiar, he covers a lot of like Disney park history, and there's a lot of fascinating stuff with that. And my style doesn't emulate his style, but I think the concept of presenting people with this history, like I said, in a compelling way and using as much of the source material as you can, I think really inspired me because I realized like, oh, I have a lot of the skill set already. Technically speaking, I just hadn't done a lot of like historical storytelling until I started doing this channel. But so that kind of thing has inspired me, certainly.
You mentioned before we recorded, kind of feeling that you're more along the lines of, I guess, amateur historian. Do you feel that imposter syndrome quite frequently?
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah.
Just do. Just making sure. It's always nice for people to, again, if they're starting out or if they kind of, we're an inspiration to other people. And I know from my point of view, it's nice when I hear people that I emulate and that I idolize quite a bit academically that say, yeah, I struggle. I don't feel like I should be here. I'm like, but you're like, well, I think Aaron Mahnke himself has even said that, like early on, he really struggled with that kind of stuff and still does. And I'm like, but you're an award-winning podcast. You have millions of views. You built a company. How, but I always say it's kind of that nice little hallmark of a really good content creator, and it keeps us all humble. But it is still wonderful to hear, like, again, you are extremely successful, and I think it's really beneficial for other people to hear, those struggles as well and know that they're not alone. That they can be successful and live with these struggles and be okay with it.
Well, I feel like if imposter syndrome wasn't a thing, everybody would just be puffing out exhaust. I mean, it's like you have to have a drive to create something that you can be proud of. And if you've got that drive, you're going to be constantly comparing yourself. I'm totally thinking out loud here, and this is totally autobiographical, by the way. You're going to be constantly comparing yourself to the platonic ideal of your product and coming up short. I think it's a feature rather than a bug. I really do.
Yeah, because I will say, Peter, looking at this work right here, like all these views and subscribers, this doesn't smack as an amateur to me. You've done the work. I was told when I was in games journalism, I had a very popular journalist say the same thing to me when I said, you guys have gone out and gotten journalism degrees and you've been like working for IGN and all these other, popular news outlets. Like, I don't feel like I belong. He's like, but you're doing the work. And at the end of the day, like you said, you work very hard for 3 months to produce these amazing videos. I can't praise this work enough. And it's fantastic. I'm inspired for sure.
Yeah, I think public history is more of an accurate description of the product, but I don't know. I'm not the one who gets to put a name on it, so I will definitely defer.
That is for the audience to do.
It is, yes, absolutely. Does anybody else have any more questions?
No, I just want to say, Peter, it's been a pleasure, and I wanted to thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this episode for a while now because I've been following your work and admiring it for some time. So it's like really great to finally get a chance to chat a little bit. And thanks for joining us. Saturday
thanks,
mornings
guys. I appreciate
don't grow on trees.
Well, like we've talked about before, it was really funny where Finn's like, man, I really love just thinking out loud. Man, let Peter Dibble come on, and I'm like, done. All right, guys.
Okay, Tigers.
Thank you so much.
That's it for us, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for joining us. This episode was brought to you by the Oregon Voices Network, a historical podcast network that brings you amazing shows like Welcome to Oregon, a Oregon history and lore podcast, Offbeat Oregon, and the Penny Dreadful Story Hour. Suppose you want to be part of the conversation. In that case, we do have a Facebook group that you can check out for the Oregon Voices Network, where you will find us and many of the guests we have on the show. And if you love our work, you should seriously consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/Oregon Voices Network. The money goes towards all of our projects and helps us pay for things like software, assets, and more. If you're listening to the audio version of this show, you can find more of our work on YouTube at youtube.com/Oregon Voices Network. Gentlemen, where can people find you and your works?
I am on most social media platforms at the Spirit of PDX. We also have a Discord server. I believe that is the Oregon Voices server, Marcus. Is that right?
I believe so, yes. I know I do need to kind of promote that a little bit more, especially since we talked about how Facebook is a little bit more closed than we'd like it to be. And honestly, Discord, it can be kind of a nice place to share information and discussion.
Right on, and I'm at Finn at pulp-lit.com. And I have a Facebook account, but I'm trying to quit.
Like smoking.
Yes.
That sounds
exactly like smoking. It was a lot of fun when I first started, and now it's boring, and I can't stop. And
I have to go to meetings now.
It used to make you look cool, but now people think it's disgusting.
Now I'm getting all wrinkly, and my clothes stink, and yeah.
That really is an apt metaphor, I swear. Oh, all right, Peter, plug your stuff.
I don't do social media very much, but you can find me on YouTube. Just type in Peter Dibble, and I will be there. A disproportionate number of people think that my name is Peter Dribble. It is not.
What?
Yeah, isn't
surprising how common that is.
Well, isn't that the archaeologist who challenged Joe Rogan, if I remember right, or is that someone else?
No, that's Flint Dibble.
Flint Dibble.
That was a different. Yeah, that was also
different
someone
Dibble.
named Dibble.
Nobody's name is Dribble. What do you mean? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's a running joke in my household that I'm Peter Dribble.
All righty, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And from me and the crew, see you later.
Whoops, I got to point at the actual camera. There we go.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.